Hey everyone, Butler here. I'm with Patch today. How you doing, Patch?
I am doing pretty good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. We're back after a bit of a break in recording. You probably won't know because the way we upload is so sporadic that you won't notice if it's been a break, but it's been a little break for us. A couple of weeks, probably. A week? Maybe a week and a half. I don't know. We had a
That's
Easter,
pretty
Easter
bad.
break here, didn't we? So,
Yeah.
and in case the sound is out a little bit, that's part my doing, part Patch's doing for what, earning himself a new microphone.
Yes. I have a new mic, and now I should be much, much better of sound quality.
Just on screen for a quick second there, you'll notice that we got charmed from that dart, blow dart. Yeah, that's bad. That means now that guy works for them.
Well,
And that guy has counterattack, and you might see the way that this fight is kind of going. So when we have this blow dart weapon, the frog dart gun, that we're not high enough level we're not a high enough level yet to use, but yeah, at least he didn't shoot us in, and so. But at least you can see the power of the dart guns if you get them on the right people.
yeah.
So our beast tamer will hopefully be able to use the frog dart gun once he gets to level 13, and he will inflict a particular status. I can't remember what the status is. But yeah, so yeah, they're pretty powerful if you can get on the right characters, especially if you can get them on sort of tanky characters that can sort of flit around the edges of the front line. Like those things, that thing that shot us is probably quite squishy, so if we can get anyone up there to hit it, it will probably go down. But for now, it's tearing us apart with this charming. This is it's sort of a training quest, but you'll remember that we recruited a reptile recently in one of our story missions, and so yeah, so here we are, we're looking at the wart dart blowgun, which applies charm, which sucks. We got a rogue, we got some other classes, and I'm basically just trying to build a sort of a recruitment drive. As you can see in these battles, there's a lot of different creature types and things like that. And so last time we went into this map, we got 5 dragons as well, or 6 dragons, whereas now it's sort of a more spread field. So we're basically just sort of saying, well, what can we gather? Is there any other cool units we can get a hold of, and maybe we can have like a little training group. See, look at this. I gave him field alchemy too, which means he can use level 2 items like that, or +2 items, and then he gets charmed, and then he does that. This battle is not an easy one to win, especially with the dragons just spitting out so much damage. And that's what we're doing. So we're just it's sort of training. Some of these guys aren't quite like our main team is sort of up to like level 14, 15. And the next story mission that I want to do is around that, and if I want to use any of these guys, I kind of need to get them near there. So that's sort of where we're going. It'd be cool to have a white knight, because they're just a different variation on the knight. It'd be cool to have a dark knight, death knight, terror knight, because they obviously have different array of spells. And yeah, just the beast tamer in general is cool to have around, because if we're going to start using reptiles and beasts and things, it's cool to have a beast tamer around to buff them up and stuff like that. So basically that's all just me saying we're training time stuff and things. I'd love to have a dragon on our team, but this is the quest for getting a dragon. It's not easy, not the first time anyway. Once you have dragons, it sort of becomes easier because you can sort of combat them a bit better. And maybe with our main team we could have combated them better as well, but yeah, I wanted to sort of train and sort of recruit at the same time. Probably trying to do too many things at once. But such is life. That's how this game goes. You need to do things practically, not fancifully. Yeah. I accidentally clicked on Buckler. He still can't do any damage because he's so low level. He doesn't have any skill levels in blowguns. Anyway, so we're probably not going to watch the game too much. We'll just let it play out, and probably, to be honest, the next episode will be the same. But we were going to talk about movies.
Yeah. Do you want me to segue into this one?
Well, let me say that we were going to talk about video games, and we had to think about what was interesting. and it's sort of that time of year where we've had sort of the early rush of games. You get stuff in like March and April for whatever reason, and we're sort of past that stage. And I think, at least in Australia, this is sort of school holiday period, so we tend to get more movies out. And I wonder if video games don't take a bit of a backseat to them sometimes in the swings and roundabouts of releases.
They're probably waiting for American summer.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of other places that have very seasonal releases on things. So we sort of didn't really have any interesting video game news. There are some games out, but not the sort of thing we're into. But yeah, so that's why we ended up on sort of movies. I don't know if you need a better segue than that, though.
My segue is DC Universe, stop sucking. I was going to add another word on there, and I thought it might be a bit impolite.
Speaking of things that are unplanned and poorly organized, just like our battle, DC movies.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like, I'm thinking, there's got to be a way I'm going here. Yeah. Anyway, you take it away, sir.
Speaking of things that can be improved by dragons, so DC Universe is like terrible. The cinematic film universe, it's just terrible, and there's a very good reason for that, and that is they're not doing any memorable stuff. Like, have you heard of the Avengers? Everyone's heard of the Avengers. You know, like, even if you're not into comics, you've heard of the Avengers before the Avengers movie was a thing. It was just, that was their superhero team.
Well, and the way they did it, like, it was like, you don't know who the Avengers are? Well, you know those 6 or 7 movies they just made? Yeah, all those guys in one movie.
Okay, but hear me out, right? And don't get me wrong, Marvel made the same mistakes, and I'll go into that in a sec. Can you tell me a single comic that you know of where Batman fights Superman?
No.
Like, it's obviously happened, but you can't think up, like, oh, that's the Batman vs. Superman comic. That's the one, you know? That's the really memorable one. And that's the problem, is everyone knows Avengers. Nobody knows a Batman vs. Superman thing. And the problem is, what I'm trying to say is, you should be taking your movies and basing it off the most popular and successful and widely known comics. And I don't just mean that in the sense of, let's make a Batman origin story. I mean, when you do Batman, you have Batman and the Joker, you have Batman and Scarecrow, you have Batman and Catwoman, you have all the memorable Batman villains. You don't just pick, you know, Batman B-listers or whatever. You pick really memorable, well thought out storylines that everyone loves. And so that's why something like the first Captain America movie was such a terrible movie. And you could probably people might disagree with me, but that first Captain America movie was just bad. And that's because
it was super popular. It had like a star-studded cast. Yeah.
And it's like, that's because the origin story of how Captain America got to the modern day isn't what everyone remembers Captain America for. Everyone remembers Captain America for punching Hitler in the face. That should have been the first Captain America movie.
He did that.
Did he? In those movies?
On stage, when he was in the pantomime.
Oh.
That was the whole Easter egg of him doing that. That was so everyone who knows the comics can be like, hey, he punched Hitler, just like in the things.
But that's not the same. And you know.
No, but they obviously weren't going to have him punch literal cinema Hitler.
But why not? That's what Captain America is remembered for.
Yeah.
If you want people to love your Captain America movie, the first thing, not even like the first thing, the last thing you should have him do is go punch Hitler in the face. Like right before the ending where he gets trapped in the snow because of a missile. He should be in like the base and encounter Hitler and jump up and punch him one. And then turn around and out in the hangar, Red Skull's in a plane, you know, laughing maniacally. And then he's like, shoot, I've got to deal with this other guy.
Do you think?
That's
I
Captain
thought Red
America.
Skull was a pretty good villain though.
No,
I
he
didn't
is.
know him from a bar of soap before that movie, but
He was much more interesting than most of the other villains.
Well, I didn't watch this, but I saw one of them YouTube sort of cheesy top 10 thingamadoobs that every man and his dog is doing these days. And but I didn't watch it. But the tagline was like top 10 villains in these comic book movies that got underplayed or killed too soon or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking he's probably the one, in my opinion, that like A, the actor was brilliant, B, the premise was brilliant, and C, like he was just a menacing villain, and you didn't like, you sort of got his motives, but you didn't, if you know what I mean. Like it just looked like he had more depth. Yeah, I figured out how to solve my charmed problem. I come prepared. And so I feel like, yeah, they killed him probably before they realized just how far these movies were going to go. Because if they could have found a way for him to come back in the modern day as well, that would have been awesome. You know, imagine the Avengers. I really think he would be Avengers level.
Here's the thing. He's actually been really popular in current comics recently.
Yeah.
Because what he does is whenever he shows up, he's always got this political angle. And sort of like a commentary on the state of the world. And he comes up against Captain America, who believes in, good, wholesome, classic American ideals. The nuclear family, the Sunday roast, a husband, wife, and 2 kids, that sort of stuff. And Red Skull always comes out and he's like, look at this world that you're fighting for. It doesn't exist anymore. There is no, World War II America. You're never going to return home to that. People these days are lazy, they're vitriolic, they're awful people, and society as you knew it is basically gone. And it puts a really interesting parallel between Captain America, who was fighting for a better age, and Red Skull, who sort of almost revels in the collapse of America. Compared to, not collapse, because obviously the country's not in ruins, but he revels in the idea that what Captain America is fighting for is gone. And, and that's a very interesting sort of character dynamic for those two.
And the best thing about a storyline like that is it doesn't matter if he's right or wrong, or if Cap's right or wrong. It's just a interesting, like say, political commentary. That's an interesting way to tell a story.
Yeah, and one of the reasons it is so popular is because it does reflect a lot of sentiments for a lot of people. They do believe that the country has gotten worse over time, at least in compared to the Captain America period. Obviously, it's way more complicated than that, whether or not a country is better or worse now. But there is, a lot of people who do think of those times and think of them fondly. I mean, that, again, might have been because the 1940s were full of propaganda. And we're followed by the Great Depression, and we cover more the propaganda than the Depression. So, but it's that sort of thing people get across, and they go, "Wow, Red Skull's really right," and it resonates with people, is what I'm saying. It resonates with the cynical audience of today, and that's why it's so good. And that's something you could make a movie about.
Yeah, and that's why I think he would be and that's exactly why he would be cool now to come and be part of the Avengers. I'm just I don't know, just fan blogging kind of route now. But imagine say they just had Civil War was the last major Avengers thing, and sure they're gonna do it was Captain America, but it was basically the Avengers, and they're gonna do the Infinity Gauntlet because that's what they've been setting up. But in hindsight, they'd almost be better not doing the Infinity Gauntlet.
I agree.
Infinity War and getting someone like Red Skull. Could you imagine? They just had Civil War, which tested the ideologies of each of the Avengers, at a personal level, right? It got them to question themselves. What are they doing? And now you give them a story with the Red Skull, where it makes them question, what is the world doing? Wouldn't that be that'd be a cool, logical next step?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. That's fascinating.
And that's why I was thinking the Red Skull, I don't know as much about him as you, but I understood the things that you just said already, where he's he's as much a different ideology as he is just evil,
Yeah.
And the point is not whether he's right or wrong, the point is just to ask the question. And it would have really, and whether that was a what do you call it, a catalyst to have the Avengers get back together. Because they're oh, well, we all believe this, and even though we had our personal differences, this is a thing. That's a good plot point. Or if it was just a way to split them further apart. We can't relate on a personal level, we can't even relate to what we're fighting for on the same plane now. Like, we can't work together. And then all of a sudden, Iron Man bogs off, you know, because he's like, I can't even relate to you guys anymore completely.
Yeah.
You know, like, there you go, easy peasy. But anyway, that's the boat they're in. I guess the thing is, we were talking about DC, I suppose.
Yeah, this is what I was actually just about to get back to.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to ask, can you think of a single Wonder Woman story that you know of?
I mean, yeah, but I don't know comics very well. Like, I kind of sort of watch the movies and then I go back and research the comics.
Sure, but here's the thing. What do you know about Wonder Woman? Like, anything?
Well, I've like this thing. I've looked this up now and I've watched vids and stuff. I know. Here's what I know about Wonder Woman, which comes from a couple of hours of watching videos explaining stuff. The DC Unlimited animated series, I think that's what it's called. The Justice League Unlimited. I can't remember. And just a couple of things. So she has some relation to the gods. I assume the Greek gods. I can't remember.
Yep.
But her backstory has actually been rewritten several times over the years. So there's the backstory where she is the physical daughter of Hades. There's the backstory where she and her Amazonas tribe, I don't know if that's the politically right way to put it, they are like physically made of clay. So they kind of don't reproduce or something. And then there's another one that's, I don't know if it's a mix of both or something, I don't know. And so I know that story. So I know that's about her origin, and I know that which one of those they take to use is probably up to in the interpretation of whatever version of her they want to do in the movies. I don't know what that is, I haven't followed that up. It sounds like it's the daughter of the gods kind of thing, because they're all like, you can't tell her who she really is and all that stuff. But anyway, that's in the trailer, you probably haven't seen it.
No.
So I think that's the right thing. I know that she was, because a huge part of it is like comics being aimed at boys at the time. It's like, well, who does Wonder Woman like sleep with? Who does she hook up with? And the actual answer is probably a few different characters over time, but her main romantic interest is Steve. I keep thinking Trainer, but I think that's a different character from something else. Steve Trevor, maybe?
I think it's Steve Trevor.
He's a war veteran, and she, but he's very, like, well-grounded. Like, his reasons are really pure. He's a really nice guy. He's the Captain America of, you know, of DC, kind of, and without the superpowers. And so, yeah, she sort of falls in love with him, and I think they have a romantic sort of thing. So I know. My point is, I know a few sort of stories, and I probably didn't know them until I looked them up. I probably knew nothing, but
sure.
But that's the hard part. Is like common people don't know anything about any of the superheroes. I don't think people knew anything about Iron Man stories until the Iron Man movies.
I'd actually agree with you there. People don't really know about a lot of the heroes, but they sort of. And Iron Man did it right. Iron Man took the villains Iron Man had and put them in situations where they made sense, until the third movie where they did a bait and switch.
I didn't like the third movie. Not because of what you're thinking, because of other reasons.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
Well, I thought the whole exploding goo bad guy was just dumb.
Yeah.
I liked the Mandarin switch. I thought it was brilliant. Because,
fair enough.
that doesn't mean there isn't a Mandarin. Like,
no, it doesn't.
It's brilliant. It's like they could easily put the Mandarin in at a later date, because he's a big Marvel villain, and say, oh yeah, they used his namesake before because they knew that we'd get this reaction. Like, that's perfect writing. I mean, if you could get Ben Kingsley, like, why wouldn't you do something like that? He was brilliant. I thought it was cool.
Here's the thing. So, how about Wonder Woman's origin story? Like, not the origin of how she was made, but the first comic, typically. Do you know much about that?
No.
So the basic premise of Wonder Woman is she lives on the island with the Amazons, or whatever secluded place it is. Yeah. And then World War II pilot, what did you say his name was? Someone Trevor?
Steve Trevor.
Steve Trevor.
That's what I mean. I'm pretty sure it's like
crashes.
literally Captain America. It's Steve
Yeah.
Rogers versus Steve. I think it's literally that, because a lot of the characters are parallels in those days because they were based on the same ideologies and characters.
Yeah, and so this World War II pilot crashes, and it completely shakes up Wonder Woman's world because they don't have men, or not in the same sense.
Yep.
I'm not 100%, but the idea is it shakes up her world and changes everything. And that isn't a particularly action-packed or exciting story to put in a movie. In a comic form, it actually plays out very nice because you've got dialogue, you've got character building, you've got, you establish the world and the ideals that Wonder Woman come from and represent, and then you see how that changes and plays out.
How that also works in a comic book is that each still frame in a comic kind of is more significant. If I use the phrase reaction shot, guy crash lands and there's this wreckage and they walk up and find this guy crawling out of his plane, and it's a guy. And the comic is just a full-page shot of the crash and the guy and the first Amazoness that finds him, and she's got this look of horror on her face. And then all the dialogue is written all in like a circle around them, not necessarily in any order, because it's just pure panic from him being in shock and the Amazoness women who are all shocked, like just saying the first thing that come to their heads. And that's a pretty impactful comic strip page. Problem is in a movie, because the movie's 2 hours long, that's like 5 seconds of reaction shot that the significance of the reactions of everyone's faces and things like that is, it fits the comic book aesthetic better.
The other thing is, and this is a large case of, and do you want to save this conversation because this is the end of the episode now. So
we're winding down, but we've got another juicy episode coming up.
Yeah, with more of this, more talking about this.
Just to be clear, I don't know if we're gonna solve any issues. We know where we want to get to. We just haven't.
Yeah, we had a direction. We just haven't got there yet.
We might not get there, but the point is we're doing training montages. We're trying to talk about something that we find interesting and people find interesting. Hopefully, people find interesting.
Yeah.
As you can see, we didn't just fail to capture a dragon. We totally failed twice on the missions. This is I did so many episodes trying to do all this. It wasn't very successful at all. Anyway, so thanks for hanging around. Thanks for watching this one.
Yeah,
this is episode 47 in the journey, which is holy heck. Are we going to do anything special for 50? No, we're not. Because that would require editing and special things that I don't know how to do yet. Yeah, thanks for watching, and we will catch you guys next time.
See you next time.